How's that? Good morning, everybody. Oh, happy Friday, everybody. Today is September 29th, 2023. Hope you guys are well. I am live from fabulous Las Vegas. I'm at Caesar's Palace in town for the Silver Symposium, which starts this evening, runs all the way through the weekend. I'm looking forward to meeting a bunch of you guys out here in Vegas today. And the top story this morning, though, is Nvidia. I got off the plane yesterday, touchdown. We hit the ground. I turned my phone on, and my phone starts blowing up. Messages from everything. First thing that caught my eye, I had a text message from Joe Brown over at Heresy Financial. He's saying basically, have you seen this yet? Nvidia's office just got raided. What? I'm in town to do presentation about Nvidia. As soon as I land, Nvidia's office is raided. So what's going on? Well, nobody really knows what's going on. There's very few details that are available right now about this issue, but it looks like Nvidia's office was raided because of anti-competitive business practices. That was their French office got raided. And that's really all we know at this point, guys. We don't know what they seized. We don't know why they've been raided for anti-competitive business practices. I have a couple of ideas. Nvidia is kind of in the business of picking winners and losers right now. They have the most sought after piece of technology in the world, these H100 GPUs that are it's awesome tech. Everybody wants it. Nvidia gets to pick who they're selling it to, and they're selling it to the people that they want to sell it to. They're selling it to companies, in a lot of cases, companies that they can control, companies like CoreWeave, one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Now, there's no proof or link that CoreWeave and all the videos that I did are even remotely involved in this raid. I don't know that they were. I don't know that they weren't. There have been some recent announcements with French companies in the last few weeks. So it's possible that that has more to do with it than maybe some of the videos that I've been doing out there. But hey, for all you guys out there who are saying, hey, nobody special, you're crazy. Samantha LeDuc, you're crazy. NVIDIA would never do this. Well, NVIDIA has a very well documented history of inadequate disclosures that they had to pay fines to the SEC for. And then if you go back even further, the early 2000s, they were actually accused of financial reporting fraud. And their CFO was fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is not a squeaky clean company. So I'm not really surprised by this raid, although I do wish I had more details at this point, but I don't. There's very little information out there. Other story going on this morning is the Bank of Japan. I have been expecting the BOJ, excuse me, I've been expecting the BOJ to intervene in markets very soon. Well, last night, a few hours ago, we got some Bank of Japan intervention, but we got pretty much the opposite of the intervention that I thought we were going to get. The Bank of Japan stepped in a few hours ago and they announced an unscheduled bond buying operation. Okay, that doesn't sound very exciting. What does that mean? It means the Bank of Japan printed yen and bought JGBs or Japanese government bonds with those yen. That's a decidedly hawkish, I'm sorry, not hawkish. That is a very dovish thing to do. Now, I've been expecting the Bank of Japan to get involved to try to defend the yen, to do something the opposite of that, to maybe sell some of their U.S. treasuries to raise dollars and then dump those dollars to buy yen to prop up the value of the yen. But that's not what they did last night. They printed yen and bought bonds. They did the opposite of what I've been expecting them to do. Now, they did very little of it. It wasn't really enough to significantly move the needle. It was only a couple of $1 billion worth of yen. So it was a very small move, but the story is they moved. And maybe that was the whole point of what the BOJ did last night, was just to remind the bond market that, hey, guys, we're going to let these interest rates rise. They have been letting interest rates on the 10-year JGB rise recently, but we're going to let it rise slowly. And so, yeah, we printed a few $1 trillion worth of yen last night and bought a couple of these bonds just to push it down a little bit, but not so much that we further weakened the yen, at least not in any substantial amount, because the yen is pushing up against that 150 to the dollar level. And that is the level where everybody's expecting the BOJ to come in and defend their currency. So we did get a move from the BOJ, but it was not the move anybody was expecting. With that, we are going to shrink my big melon of a head. And guys, while I'm doing that, won't you please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm? It helps to get this message out and reach a wider audience. I'd sure appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We don't usually do this from a hotel in Vegas in front of these gaudy curtains. We usually do it from my studio back home, but we're on the road this week. So won't you have your coffee with us every other day? Now, here we are, the Fear and Greed Index. We were in extreme fear yesterday, and I was mentioning in my live stream yesterday morning, hey guys, here's where we typically catch a little bit of a bounce. Yesterday, we caught a little bit of a bounce. It wasn't a huge bounce, but we did catch one. Fear Greed Index is still deep into fear territory at 29, but that is up from the 24 we saw yesterday. So we're moving a little bit higher, and stocks are moving higher along with it. We've got the S&P is up 29 points pre-market this morning, about 2/3 of 1% to the upside in the S&P. The Dow is also looking really good this morning, up 200 points. Again, almost 2/3 of 1% on the Dow this morning, up 206. And the NASDAQ leading the way higher, up 136 points. I'm supposed to have this on a one-day chart. I apologize. There we go, one-day chart. 136 points higher pre-market on the NASDAQ this morning, 0.93% in the green. So stocks are liking this little bounce we got this morning. Why is that happening? A couple of reasons. We've got a slightly weaker dollar going on right now, down 41 basis points in the DXY. I'm assuming that has a little bit to do maybe with the BOJ. But again, what the BOJ did yesterday, it was a dovish move, so it wouldn't really strengthen the yen. It would technically weaken the yen. I think the dollar just got a little overheated, guys. It ran so fast. We were flirting. We were in that 103, 104 range for so many weeks. We blew right through the 105s. We were into the high 106s yesterday. I think it just ran too far, too fast, and it's taking a breather here. Now, is this I don't know what the opposite of a dead cat bounce is when we're on the way up. So is this just a minor correction and we're going to resume higher? I don't know. But right now, dollar is a lot weaker this morning, and your precious metals are sure going to like that, down 42 basis points on the DXY. And it's not just the dollar that's a little weaker today. We've also got yields are falling, notably on the long end of the curve. Again, yields have been rising at an astronomical pace since Jerome Powell's FOMC press conference a few days ago. They were due to take a break. And, well, that's what they're doing right now. We've got the 30-year yield is at 4.68%. That's down almost 5 basis points this morning. The 10-year is at 4.54%, down 6 basis points this morning. The 2-year down 5 basis points, also 5.02. And the 1 month is actually up a tick at 5.404. So we have got lower bond yields. We have got a weaker dollar. What do you think gold is doing? Silver's doing? You bet, you guessed it, folks. They are loving this morning. December gold futures are up almost 0.5%, or $8.85, trading at $18.87 for December gold. Check out my favorite of the shiny silver. It's only fitting on the first day of the Silver Symposium that we get a nice big green candle in silver. December silver futures trading 23.32, up 58 cents this morning, or a full 2.58%. Look at the shiny go this morning. It's liking those lower rates and that weaker dollar. WTI crude oil November futures trading at 92.86. So oil is up again, another $1.15, or 1.25% higher on oil. So let's talk about the Nvidia story here, guys, because this is the big one going on. Again, scant details here. I wish there was more. I was looking for more. We just don't know. When there's ongoing investigations, authorities are usually very tight-lipped about it. Nvidia's French office is raided in cloud computing antitrust inquiry. French competition authorities have expressed concern that established companies in the sector could exclude smaller ones. France's competition authority raided Nvidia's local offices this week on suspicion the company engaged in anti-competitive business practices. So that is what they're accused of, anti-competitive business practices. They're suggesting that Nvidia has a monopoly, and they kind of do at the moment. Nvidia pretty much is the market for these GPUs that are needed to power AI. This is the first significant regulatory scrutiny the company has faced since its rise to be the paramount supplier of artificial intelligence chips. Now, again, we have very few details, but one of the things I like to do, if I only have a couple of seconds to get through an article, and I read so many articles every day, read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs always. Do a control F if you're looking for some keywords to see if it might be related to some other stories. But especially in the financial press, you always got to check out the last few paragraphs too, because that's where you find some good stuff hidden there. And I did find in this last paragraph on this Wall Street Journal article, maybe a little hint about what is going on with this French raid. They're saying 2 French companies this week announced deals to expand their offerings of NVIDIA's most powerful AI chips called H100s. French telecommunications operator Iliad Group said it was installing these chips in the heart of a Paris area data center, and OVH Cloud, a cloud services company, said it would add H100s to the lineup of NVIDIA processors it offers its customers for AI applications. So we've got these 2 companies that recently announced these deals with NVIDIA. These companies are, what was the name again? Iliad Group and OVH Cloud. What are companies Jack has never heard of for 1,000, Alex? So if you're going to look into this, this is where you would start looking into these companies. It's what I'm going to do just as soon as I have a spare minute, because my schedule for the next few days is rather nutty, guys. But I would start here if we're trying to figure out what's going on, what's special about this Iliad Group, this OVH Cloud Group, because these are the French companies that are involved with NVIDIA. It's French authorities that are getting involved. So it could have something to do with those 2. It could also have something to do with this ridiculously named Damoon Group that just came out, or Damoon Direct Activity, whatever they're calling them. That's that joint venture between colossal scam artist Tether and other colossal scam artist Northern Data, 2 of the sleaziest companies in the world. That's my opinion, not a statement of fact, just my opinion. Keep in mind that they just had a big announcement about a week or 2 ago that they were buying $470 or $429 million worth of NVIDIA GPUs. Now, Northern Data, that was formed by the merger of a big U.S. Bitcoin miner called Winstone and this German company called Northern Bitcoin. They merged together and became Northern Data. Now they want to get into AI. So it's also possible that this joint venture between Tether and Northern Data is also a factor in this antitrust probe. But guys, for whatever reason, all the world's cockroaches are congregating around this company, Nvidia, right now. And if you go look into this Northern Data company, it's some of the people who are running it. I mean, you've got the Block One guys are involved in this, one of the biggest ICO scams in history. Some other people, you may be hearing about this some more on my channel in the future, some other things I'm looking into. I may have even found an obscure connection to the Wirecard guys. Why are these the people who are getting the most sought after tech in the world? These are the people who are going to control the hardware that runs the software that is going to control your life. So I'm glad somebody is looking into these companies and what they're into, because, well, it worries me. Let's just put it that way. NVIDIA stock, though, you'd never guess that they were just raided by the cops. Check out NVIDIA stock. It was up 1.5% yesterday. It's up another 1.7% today, trading pre-market at $438. So whatever this raid did, it didn't hurt NVIDIA stock, although NVIDIA stock well off its highs from recent days, down significantly from when you were told not to listen to Twitter randos like yours truly. Moving on, BOJ acts to slow rising bond yields with unscheduled buying. Yields on long and super long debt have surged to decade highs. Now, that statement there, surged to decade highs. Okay, I guess it's factual. Yes, Japanese government bond yields have surged to decade highs, at least in terms of Japanese government bond yields. They have surged from 0.45% to 0.76%. And okay, on a percentage move basis, that's a surge. And is it a decade high? Yes, it's a decade high. But let's compare that to the US 10-year government bond that is yielding what, 5.6, 5.55 this morning? So the strong language, the surge to decade highs, it's accurate, but you have to keep in mind context here, guys. Japanese government bonds are so ridiculously suppressed at 0.76% that I wouldn't use language like that, but that is what the bonds have done. The central bank is trying to manage yields without weakening the yen. That's the key word there. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to keep those yields suppressed without having to print so much money to keep those yields lower. The Bank of Japan announced an unscheduled bond purchase operation Friday in a reminder to the market of its determination to manage the upward momentum in sovereign yields. And, that statement there, that in a reminder to the market, I think that was really the whole goal of this operation. It was so small. It was just to remind bond traders, hey, guys, we're the BOJ and we're here. and we reserve the right to rig this market. Pretty sure that was the whole goal of this unscheduled bond buying operation. Because when you look at the details here, the BOJ's purchase of 300 billion yen, which is only $2 billion, when Jerome Powell blows his nose with $2 billion, only $2 billion of 5 to 10-year JGBs. So this $2 billion was split across several different yields, several different bonds. It's barely enough to move the needle here. This was relatively small and not strong enough to bring a big reduction in yields. That's according to, watch my pronunciation here, Katsutoshi Inadomi, senior strategist at Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Asset Management. How is my non-regional diction, guys? I usually butcher these pronunciations. I'm sorry, I don't get out much. A larger operation would have run the risk of hurting the yen, which has been trading near the 150 level versus the dollar. So the key takeaway, guys, this was really a symbolic gesture by the BOJ, just letting the market know, yo, guys, we're here. We're going to step in if we have to. But it was really weak sauce, not very much of a move. Now, let's look at the Japanese 10-year government bond. This is the 10-year JGB. We're showing this on TradingView here. Make it a little bigger so you guys can see it. Now, stop with the pop-ups. Here we go. This was back in July. This is when Japan first announced, okay, guys, we are going to tweak our yield curve control policy. And they said, we're going to go from holding our yields at 0.5%. We're going to now manage the yields within a band of as low as 0 to as high as 1%. Now, just the initial reaction to that announcement, we saw a big move up in Japanese government bonds. And they've kind of been bouncing up and down, making these little 5 basis point or 0.05% moves along the way. Now, when they started, they were yielding about 0.45%. And now they've been climbing, notably in the last week or so. The yields on the Japanese government bonds have surged a little bit. They went as high as 0.776 yesterday. And then the Japanese stepped in. They bought a little bit, a couple $2 billion worth. It did bring those yields down about a half a basis point. But I think that half a basis point move lower was probably bond traders reacting to what the BOJ was doing more so than what the BOJ was doing. Again, this was a psychological thing, just letting the market know, hey, guys, we're here. Now, that's the move in Japanese government bonds. Here's the move in the yen, and this is the rub with what the Japanese are trying to do. As they're printing yen to suppress their bond yields because they're trying to create inflation in Japan, as crazy as that sounds with the numbers we've all been living with in the West, they're still struggling to create inflation in Japan, which for whatever reason they want to create inflation. I don't know why. But they have to print yen to do that. They can't just buy bonds out of thin air. They have to print yen out of thin air and then buy bonds with that. Well, as they've done that, that has weakened the yen. And the yen is currently trading at about 149.1 to the dollar. It takes 149 yen to make $1 US. So as they're doing this, they're weakening the yen. They don't want to weaken the yen too much because they need their yen to buy dollars, to buy oil, to buy food. Japan imports most of the commodities that it's dependent on. So they're kind of walking a tightrope here. If they buy too many bonds, they weaken their yen. That causes other problems. If they don't buy enough bonds, their bond yields are going to rise too fast. And anytime interest rates move too fast, it causes problems in bond markets, often problems you don't see coming. Case in point, things like Silicon Valley Bank that happened here in the States because they raised interest rates so fast here in the States. So the move that the BOJ made yesterday, it just really wasn't a very big move. That's a key takeaway there. One more story I want to talk about, guys, is the UAW. Keep an eye on this one because it's Friday. They still haven't reached a deal. And the UAW is saying, we're going to expand the strike if we don't have a deal. They're saying that's by 10 a.m. Eastern time, just about 40 minutes from now. UAW President Shawn Fain is scheduled to release targets for their third round of strikes starting in just a few minutes because they have, I guess they're doing this slow escalation policy. That's going to be the BOJ's big move here. As they go on, as nothing happens, there's Weekend at Bernie's walking the picket line there. Well, let me just read on a little bit here. Fresh work stoppages would add to more than 18,000 factory workers across the companies who are striking at 3 assembly plants and dozens of parts distribution facilities. The current total strike count represents about 12% of the union's 146,000 workers at the Detroit companies. So was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week they escalated the strike. They went from just the 3 manufacturing plants. They brought in some of the parts suppliers and they went on strike there. We don't know what the target is going to be for this round of escalation. The key thing is, again, if they go after those cash cow vehicles, if they go after like the F-150, the plant that Ford makes the F-150 at, that's like their nuclear option. If you see them go on strike there, that's when you know that they're serious and they've had enough. In the meantime, we're probably just going to see this, baby steps escalation, a few thousand here and there, adding to the problem. I guess there's a problem, adding to the problem over and over again. Again, the UAW, they're asking for a 40% raise, which is a pretty substantial raise, but not so much in the context of how bad inflation has been. They're also asking for things like shorter work weeks. They're not going to get everything they're asking for. The big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, they've already offered a lot of what they're asking for. It's just a matter of them meeting in the middle somewhere. And we're probably going to see several iterations of this before this thing gets done, not without some ridiculous political grandstanding by people looking to get 15 minutes of fame out of it. So we'll keep an eye on this story. But again, watch that F-150 factory. If you see it hit that one, that is a big deal. And also, I want to talk about this real quick. U.S. pending home sales. Wow, this number hit the tape yesterday. Pending home sales in the U.S., month over month, mind you. This is just the 1 month change, down 7.1% for the month of August. Now, that's being driven almost entirely by interest rates, right? Higher mortgage rates. Look at this chart, guys. 7.1% decline in the month of August here. It's a month over month number. Now, why is this so important? Because most of this recent move in interest rates didn't happen in August. It happened in September. So this 7.1% month over month decline in home purchases, guys, doesn't even reflect the move that we've seen recently. So this is going to get even worse in the following months. The housing market is frozen and it's getting even colder. This thing's approaching absolute zero where nothing moves. Now, why is that happening? Because houses are not worth what we're saying they're worth. Nobody's selling them because they're afraid they're not going to be able to buy a new place, or they're afraid they're not going to be able to get a loan. We're seeing the same thing going on with private equity and these net asset value loans. I might even do a video about that over the next few days, time permitting. Things are not worth what we're saying they're worth. Nobody's buying them, and so nobody is selling them, and these markets are just seizing up. Sooner or later, price declines are coming here, guys. It's down 7.1%. That is a massive drop in home sales. And I have a thank you I have to send to Mr. Dan Hedin. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate the super chat very much. Dan is saying uranium is up again. Pre-market spot is now over 72. Uranium bulls, you guys are cleaning up right now. The yellow cake just keeps going higher and higher. I have promised you guys an interview with somebody on uranium, and I will deliver on that. It is coming. Don't have anything in the works just yet, but I'm working on it. I promise you. Congratulations, uranium bulls, on those gains. Don't forget to take profits along the way, guys. When things go vertical, they tend to come back vertical at some point. And also, who do we have? Thank you. Thanks again, Dan. Appreciate that. And thank you. New day, new adventure for the super chat. I like that name, by the way. Says, have a beer on me. Sorry, frog in my throat. Have a beer on me. Thanks for the great info. Well, thank you very much for the cerveza, sir. I appreciate that very much. And you are most welcome for the great info, guys. But no thanks is necessary. I love doing this job. I will do this forever and ever and ever. God willing, I love doing what I'm doing. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody who has come out to Vegas for the Silver Symposium. Shout out to my buddy Chet, who I met in line while I was checking out yesterday. I'm sitting there checking into the hotel, and I hear out of the corner of my ear, I hear, "Yo, Melonhead." That got my attention. I looked around, and I met somebody who was in town, a viewer who's in town for the Silver Symposium. So what's up, Chet, if you're watching? He's probably sleeping. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you today. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for everything you guys do for the channel. Looking forward to meeting all you guys here in Vegas over the next few hours and the next few days at the Silver Symposium. I also got to say hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Thank you for taking care of the girls while I'm out of town. Till next time, everybody, live small and dream big.